With Lewis Hamilton finally re-signing for Mercedes this week, we now have a finalised lineup for the 2021 F1 season, so I thought I would make my 2021 season predictions. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. So this predictions video will start with 5 general quickfire and perhaps out there predictions. I'll then look at my predictions for the championship finishing positions in both the Constructors and Drivers' Championship, so stay tuned to find out who I think will finish second in the drivers' standings, because we all know who'll finish first, obviously. Now before I get into it, I'm going to offer a bit of a disclaimer. You're not going to agree with all of these predictions, and let's face it, at this point nobody knows what's going to happen in 2021, but that's part of the fun, so please be nice in the comments section. Prediction 1. George Russell Q3. So my first prediction will be that George Russell will have a Q3 performance in his Williams car this year. His Saturday performances have been impressive to say the least over the last couple of years, and he achieved 9 Q2 appearances in his 16 races for Williams last year. But this year, I think he'll take it that one step further and sneak his way into a Q3 at least once this season. Prediction 2. McLaren Mercedes will win a race with Lando Norris. For starters, how awesome is it saying McLaren Mercedes again? They're a team with a lot of momentum going into this season. As much as the team managing to win a race would be unlikely, we did see 2 midfield teams winning a race last year in Pierre Gasly for AlphaTauri and Sergio Perez for Racing Point. But this year, I think Norris will get lucky and manage to win a race for the team, which would be their first since Jenson Button last won for the team back in 2012. Prediction 3. Fernando Alonso's first podium since 2014. As per last year, I expect the midfield cars to be very close this season, which means that the newly named Alpine team will want to take advantage once again and reach the podium positions. And although I think the team will struggle compared to last year, I think Fernando Alonso at the ripe old age of 39 will return to the podium once again, which will be the first time he tastes the champagne since Hungary in 2014. Prediction 4. Stroll and Vettel will make contact in races. There's a new driver lineup at the Silverstone-based team this year, and a new name in Aston Martin to go with it. But my prediction here is that the 2 drivers in Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll will make contact with each other during this season. Now the key point to note here is that I think it will happen more than once. Both drivers have made some somewhat careless mistakes in the past couple of years, and I expect these 2 could end up quite close to each other on track during this season, or maybe too close. Prediction 5. Renault will gain a new customer team. So my 5th and final out there prediction will be that Renault will gain a new customer team. I don't expect this to happen mid-season, obviously, but I expect an announcement will be made for either 2022 or perhaps even 2023. And I don't know who this will be. Perhaps a Ferrari customer team could grow tired of having an engine that struggles to deliver enough power. But I think there'll be an announcement made during the 2021 season. Constructors' Championship predictions. Moving on to the Constructors' Championship predictions now, and in 10th place, I think it will be Haas. They're a team that have been going backwards in recent years, and they've hit the reset button going into 2021 by picking 2 rookie drivers in Schumacher and Mazepin. I think that alongside this, the team won't exactly be putting a lot of effort in, given the regulation changes for next year. So that of course means that the team that have taken the last spot in the championship for the last 3 seasons are going to move forward in 2021, as I think Williams will instead take 9th place. The team is definitely on the up, and I think that in Russell and Latifi the team has drivers that could definitely be there to capitalise on any point scoring opportunities that present themselves through the season. Plus, the team have some new personnel on board since the team takeover by Doralton Capital in 2020. So we may start to see some improvements there too. I feel like Alfa Romeo are the team that is the most forgotten in Formula 1 at the moment, and I think they'll take 8th place once again this year. They have kept the same driver lineup for the last 2 seasons in Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, and I think they'll be about where they were last year, and perhaps that's exactly why they're forgotten about. Next up, I've got AlphaTauri in 7th, and despite the heroics of Pierre Gasly at Monza last year, the AlphaTauri team finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship for 2020, and I predict they'll be there again this year. With Yuki Tsunoda graduating from Formula 2, the team goes back towards the direction of being a junior team developing drivers for Red Bull. I think they'll do well, but not exceptionally for 2021. In 6th place, I've gone for Alpine. Last year, the Renault team finished 5th for the 2nd time in a row, despite Ferrari dropping down the order. This year, I think their driver lineup has gotten slightly worse, as Daniel Ricciardo moves on from his 2-year stint at the team to be replaced by Alonso, as I mentioned earlier. So I expect the team to head back down the order this year. I think Aston Martin will drop to 5th this year from their 4th place last year. The team were in a position to take that 3rd spot in 2020, and without the points penalty received for copying the Mercedes rear brake ducts, they would have done so. But have the team really been able to develop their 2019 Mercedes car much more going into this year? I think they may struggle, given they can't exactly copy the 2020 Mercedes car going into this year. Their new driver lineup in Vettel and Stroll is good, but I think like Alpine, the driver lineup is probably slightly weakened, and in my opinion that's mostly because of how much experience Perez had with the team rather than outright speed. The mechanics and engineers will be working with a new driver in Vettel, so it may take some time for them to get up to speed this year, which is why I think they'll end up 5th. Next up, in 4th we got Ferrari, a team that had a massive fall from grace last year as they dropped to 6th in the championship. This year I think we'll see a bit of a rebound. Whether Sainz will be able to outperform the car as much as Leclerc did last year is a point to address later, but I think the car will be back nearer the front of the grid. It's being widely reported that the team have made some significant upgrades to their power unit for 2021 to try and recoup some of the losses from last year, and I expect a team with the budget of Ferrari to have made a decent step forward this year and take 4th in the constructors. McLaren next, and I think they'll end up in the same place as last year, in 3rd. But I don't think that'll be a bad thing. For starters, I think they'll take another step forwards towards the front of the grid, assuming they've been able to adjust their 2020 car to fit that Mercedes engine. I feel like the team are poised to take another step forward and have a great chance at offering a greater challenge to both Red Bull and Mercedes ahead. So, moving on to the final 2 teams now, and I think Red Bull will come 2nd in the Constructors' Championship once again this year. They managed to deliver a 2nd place championship finish last year with a worse driver lineup than they have this year. They've replaced Alex Albon with Sergio Perez, and I think that was a sensible move, looking outside the team's driver academy to provide a solid 2nd driver for Verstappen. As I said in my video on the topic, I think Perez can do well, provided he can offer some points into the development of the car, but I don't think it will be quite enough to catch up or beat the dominant Mercedes team. And of course, it will be Mercedes taking their 8th title in a row, once again asserting their dominance over the championship in the turbo hybrid era. Keeping Hamilton and Bottas on for 2021 is obviously the sensible move that will ensure the team can continue to dominate. I will say that I think the championship will be closer this year than it was last year, with their main and pretty much only rivals in Red Bull strengthening their driver lineup through the off-season. But nonetheless, I think it will be another championship victory for Mercedes in 2021. So it's now time for the Drivers' Championship predictions. And starting out at number 20 is Nikita Mazepin. And I won't say any more on that because I don't think he deserves the airtime. Next up in 19th, I think it will be Mick Schumacher. During his rise through the ranks, he's typically struggled in his first season in a new category, and I expect this year to be no different. And as I mentioned before, the Haas car won't be up to scratch in 2021, so I think Schumacher will end up in 19th place. In 18th place, I've gone for Nicholas Latifi. After getting his first F1 season under his belt last year, I think he'll continue to improve and maybe even get some points this season after last year's best race finish of 11th. Next up, I'm going for Kimi Raikkonen to finish in 17th position. At 41, he must be looking to retire at the end of this season, but then I feel like people have been saying that for the last 2 or 3 seasons, to be honest. He has been in a bit of a decline in recent times, as last year both he and Giovinazzi ended up on the same number of points, but I think he'll end up 17th this year. I've gone with George Russell to split the Alfa Romeo cars in 16th this year for a couple of reasons. For starters, George Russell is an incredibly talented driver and has done well with that Williams car over the past couple of years. I expect he will continue to deliver and perhaps iron out some of the mistakes that we saw in the last year. Then, I also think the Williams car is on the up, after taking a big step in the right direction from 2019 to 2020. I think they'll do the same again, which should allow Russell the chance to get a few more points through the 23 race season. And as I mentioned, with Russell splitting the Alfa Romeo cars, I think Giovinazzi will end up ahead of Russell in 15th position in the championship. The Italian driver has been steadily improving over his 2 years in Formula 1 so far, and despite not getting the call up to that Ferrari seat, he has been kept on rather than being replaced by another Ferrari driver academy member like Callum Ilott. So that shows that the team have faith in him. For Giovinazzi to keep his seat in Formula 1 for 2022, he will need to deliver, so I expect him to step it up once again. In 14th, I think it'll be the rookie, Yuki Tsunoda. I think he's the first young driver coming into that Red Bull Junior team for a while that isn't going to be expected to step up into the main team within a year. He has plenty of talent and potential, so given time he could become a solid F1 driver. So whilst I don't think he's going to rival his teammate too much, I don't think he'll be beaten by any backmarkers over the course of the season. Next up, in 13th, we have a driver that's got a critical year ahead of him in Esteban Ocon. The French driver's reputation took a hit last year after being decidedly beaten by Daniel Ricciardo. This year, he's up against Alonso, and whilst I don't think he'll be able to match the Spaniard over the course of the season, I think it'll be fairly close. But for me, I think Ocon will end up 13th. In 12th, I've gone Pierre Gasly, and this guy's reputation has definitely recovered from the lows of his time at Red Bull in 2019. I don't think he'll be able to achieve a win as he did last year, just because of the fact that the AlphaTauri car isn't quite at the level of the other midfield cars, let alone the frontrunners. I think it'll be Gasly's last year in a Red Bull-owned seat though, as he'll look to move on for 2022. And then I think Fernando Alonso will end up 11th this year. I think that the Alpine team is in decline, and despite Alonso being a good driver for the team to bring in, is he going to be able to live up to the level that Daniel Ricciardo offered last year? I think he'll do well, and maybe score a podium as I mentioned earlier, but will end up down the order in 11th come the end of the season. Lance Stroll is in at 10th place for me, as he'll continue to do a decent job in that car. He had a great start to the season last year, but it dropped off through the second half with some unlucky retirements plus his COVID diagnosis. But if he can regain that first half season form from 2020, we could see him higher in the standings, but I think he'll end up 10th this year. Now this is potentially a controversial one as I've put Carlos Sainz in 9th place for the 2021 season. I think he'll do well to compete with Charles Leclerc, who's had 2 years at that Ferrari team now. And I think Sainz will do a good job in the Ferrari, but will struggle when compared to where he was at in the McLaren last year as he gets used to the new team and that power unit for 2021. In 8th place, I've gone for Sebastian Vettel. I hope that 2021 is the year that Vettel makes his comeback, proving what he's capable of across the season. The new team environment is exactly what Vettel needed in my opinion, and with the Mercedes-powered Aston Martin team, I think he has exactly what he needs to try and work with the team to get them towards the front for 2022. But this year, I expect him to do a good job and end up in 8th. In 7th, I'm going for Lando Norris. His first couple of years in the sport have been great, and his improvement from year 1 to year 2 was clear for all to see, as he was more consistently able to compete at the front of the midfield. This year, that McLaren car will probably improve again, so I expect to see him up in 7th. Charles Leclerc up next in 6th, and I think he will once again prove why Ferrari were right to bring him up to the team when they did. Last year, he did an unbelievable job to drag that Ferrari car into positions that it just didn't belong, and I think we'll see him up there again competing for podium finishes whenever possible. Then we have the Aussie Daniel Ricciardo, who's moved to McLaren, and I think he'll finish in 5th place. We saw from his transition to Renault in 2019 that he can hit the ground running at a new team, and given his 5th place finish last year was in the Renault car, I think he'll match that finishing position this year in that best of the rest spot once again. Next up, and perhaps this is wishful thinking, but I've gone for Valtteri Bottas in 4th position. Last year, he finished 2nd, but only really ended up ahead of Max Verstappen because of the Dutch driver's 5 retirements through the 2020 season. He was constantly under pressure from the young Red Bull driver, and I think there'll be more of the same next year. I've then gone for Sergio Perez to finish 3rd in the championship, his best finishing spot over his career. The Red Bull car will be up there as one of the best, and I think Perez will perform better than the other second drivers that have occupied that seat over the last couple of years. It'll be good to see Perez in a front-running team again, and I think he's capable of achieving podiums and perhaps even race wins in 2021. And then, I've gone for Max Verstappen to finish 2nd in the championship this year, and I think he'll build on a strong 2020 that will be his 6th season in Formula 1. I expect he'll be a thorn in the Mercedes side, as the team have 2 drivers that could compete with the Mercedes team. And finally, of course, we have title number 8 for Lewis Hamilton, who will be at the top once again. The Mercedes car in the hands of Hamilton will be the best on the grid without a doubt, so I think we'll see him become the most decorated driver of all time in terms of championships come the end of the season. Bit of an easy prediction, I know, but it's difficult to go against the driver who's won 6 of the last 7 championships. So there we have it, my 2021 predictions. Let me know what you think I've got wrong in the comments, but please be nice about it, as I'm only human. We shall see what 2021 will bring, but I think we're in for another great season. If you watched this far and enjoyed it, then please leave this video a like and subscribe for more F1 opinion content through 2021 and beyond.